My girlfriend threw away my antidepressants to fix me naturally. Now I found out she's been stealing my therapy notes to control my parents. I'm a 29-year-old man named Sean, and I've struggled with depression since I was 15. Not the, I'm having a bad week, kind, but the real, clinical kind that sinks into your bones and makes it hard to brush your teeth or answer a phone call. I've been in therapy on and off for most of my life, and I've been on antidepressants consistently for the last 5 years. They don't fix everything, but they keep me functioning. And for someone like me, that's huge. I've had to fight for every ounce of stability in my life, and I thought I was finally in a good place, steady job, decent apartment, and for the last year and a half, a girlfriend who said she supported me no matter what. Her name is Amber. She's 26, works in marketing, does yoga at 6 a.m., loves green smoothies, and has this intense obsession with natural healing. I thought it was cute at first, her little lectures about turmeric, the way she bought me crystals for my birthday, even her rants about how therapy is Western poison. I didn't always agree, but I never felt judged. Until last month. I keep my meds in a daily organizer. Amber knows that. She's seen me take them. I never hid it. One morning, I noticed 2 days in a row were still full. I figured I'd just forgotten. Then it happened again and again. I started doubting myself. Was I getting worse? Was my memory slipping? Then one Sunday morning, I caught her. I woke up earlier than usual and walked into the kitchen. She was standing at the trash can with something in her hand, a handful of my pills. She jumped like I'd caught her stealing. I asked, "What are you doing?" She stared at me like I was the crazy one. "You don't need this stuff, Sean. It's killing you." I just stood there, silent. Then she launched into this monologue about how meds were keeping me dependent, how I was stronger than this, how healing comes from within. I was too stunned to even argue. My heart was pounding. My face felt hot. I walked out, drove around for 2 hours before coming back. She cried, apologized, said she just wanted to help. I told her to never touch my meds again. She agreed. I wish that was the end. The next week, I had a breakdown at work. Full panic mode. Couldn't focus, couldn't stop shaking, couldn't breathe. My therapist said it sounded like withdrawal. Turns out, Amber had replaced my meds. Same organizer, but filled with supplements, B12, magnesium, St. John's wort. She smiled when I confronted her. "I was easing you off," she said, gently, like I was a child. That night, I told her I needed space. I asked her to leave for a few days. She refused, said she was worried about my mental state. That's when I noticed something else. I keep a therapy journal, private stuff, things I'd never say out loud to anyone, not even her. I write in it after sessions. I leave it on my desk, folded, hidden under a planner. It was open. She'd read it, page after page. Some pages were dog-eared. I asked her, quietly, trying to stay calm, "Did you read this?" She didn't deny it. Instead, she said, "You should be glad someone knows the real you." I kicked her out. She cried again, screamed, actually, said I was ungrateful and dangerously unstable. Then she said something that chilled me. "You think your parents would still support you if they knew what you really think about them?" I stared at her. "How would they know?" She smiled. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the journal she had read, violated, really, trying to retrace every word I'd ever written about my family, about my mother's passive guilt trips, my dad's absence during my teenage years, the time I considered cutting contact completely, even if just for a few months, the exact kind of stuff you only ever say in therapy or on paper, never to their face. Amber had read all of it, and now, apparently she'd used it. The next day, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was tight, formal, like she was reading off a script. "I heard you're not doing well," she said. "I'm fine." I lied. "Why?" She hesitated. Then, "Amber said you've been talking about leaving the family, that you think we're toxic. Is that true?" I didn't respond right away. "Sean, did Amber call you?" She came by, said she was worried. She showed me a few things. Writings. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "She showed you my journal." "No names. Just phrases. You wrote that being with us made you feel invisible." Silence. Then my mom sniffled. "I didn't know you hated us that much." I didn't. I'd never said that. Not like that. I called Amber. Voicemail. I texted, "Did you give my mom pages from my journal?" She replied a minute later, "I didn't give anything. I showed her what I thought she needed to see. She loves you. She's scared. I'm trying to help." I threw my phone across the room. Over the next week, the fallout spiraled. My mom called twice more, once crying, once angry. My dad texted something cryptic, "If you feel we've failed you, that's on us. But dragging Amber into this is unfair." I hadn't even spoken to him. Then I got an email from my aunt, asking if I was having a breakdown again. Amber had told them all. Or worse, she'd interpreted my therapy work and fed it to them as truth, with no nuance, no care, no context. And the craziest part, she thought she was helping. I cornered her at her yoga studio. She was surprised, or pretended to be. "Sean, what are you doing here? We need to talk now. I have a class in. You read my journal. You weaponized it. You told my family lies." She tilted her head, calm as a cult leader. "I told them your truth. The part you were too scared to say." I stared at her, stunned. "That wasn't yours to share." She leaned in, voice soft. "They were hurting you. You just couldn't see it. You should be grateful I helped you start cutting cords." That night, I called my therapist, told her everything. She didn't even pause before responding. "Sean, what Amber is doing is emotional abuse. It's manipulative, controlling, and dangerous." The word abuse shook me, because until then, I'd never thought of it like that. Amber never hit me, never screamed, never called me names. But she had sabotaged my medication, dismissed my mental health plan, read my private therapy records, manipulated my family with personal disclosures, and now I was alone. Again. Worse, I was doubting myself, wondering if I had painted my parents too harshly, if maybe she was right, and I just didn't want to admit how broken I was. That's how gaslighting works. I started rewriting my journal entries, this time digitally, with password protection. I wrote about Amber, how things had escalated, how she never apologized without strings, how every breakdown I had became another opportunity for her to guide me, with her supplements and chakras and unsolicited shadow work. I realized something else while writing. Every time I pushed back, even slightly, Amber would escalate her concern by going to someone else in my life. Once it was my parents, then a co-worker, then my therapist. She wanted eyes on me, but only through her lens, her version of me. And now I was terrified of what she'd do next, until I saw the invoice. It was folded and slid between papers on my desk. I almost threw it away. $450. Consultation, private life coaching, on behalf of client Sean D. Paid in full by Amber Lynn Taylor. I googled the name on the invoice. Life coach. No license, no certification, but a flashy website with testimonials about narcissist recovery and empath healing. Amber had hired someone, paid them, to fix me behind my back. Without my consent, I emailed the coach pretending to be interested in services. She replied, "So glad Amber referred you. She's mentioned your struggles. She says your inner child is ready to come forward." I was done, but Amber wasn't. I stared at that email from the life coach for nearly an hour. "She says your inner child is ready to come forward." It felt like parody, like some twisted self-help meme you'd find on a toxic Instagram reel. Except this was real. Amber had gone behind my back, talked to a complete stranger about my mental health, paid her $450 to help me, and now that stranger thought I was a client. Worse, Amber was giving her updates. I felt nauseous. This wasn't love. This wasn't concern. This was control. And it was spreading. I didn't respond to the coach. Instead, I printed everything. The invoice, the email. I gathered screenshots of Amber's texts, photos of my destroyed medication packs, even her message to my mom. My mom had sent it to me in a moment of guilt. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I visited my parents. They live about 40 minutes away in a quiet suburb with trimmed lawns and ceramic garden frogs. I pulled into the driveway and just sat for 5 minutes, 10, practicing what I was going to say. When my mom opened the door, her eyes were red. She didn't hug me. "Hi," she said, like I was a stranger. I stepped in, took a deep breath, and pulled out the envelope of printed screenshots. "I need you to read this, all of it. Then we'll talk." She hesitated, but took it. We sat in silence for half an hour. She read every page. At the end, she looked up. Her hand trembled as she passed the paper back. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I didn't say anything. My dad joined us. He'd read over her shoulder. For once, he looked engaged, angry, even. "She manipulated us," he said. "She manipulated all of us." That night was one of the hardest I've lived through. My parents apologized for believing Amber, for doubting me, for not thinking critically when she fed them curated journal quotes and half-truths, for assuming I was spiraling instead of simply reacting to betrayal. My mom cried. My dad swore more than I've ever heard him swear, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the broken one. I felt like a survivor. I went no contact with Amber the next day. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I sent her one final message. "You've crossed too many lines. I've spoken to my family, to my therapist, and to legal support. Do not contact me again. If you do, I will take further action." She didn't respond right away, but a few hours later, I got a single text. You're making a mistake. I was the only one who really saw you. And then she blocked me, which should have been the end. But it wasn't. 3 days later, I started getting messages on Instagram from strangers. Hey man, I don't know you, but I saw Amber's story. You're the depressed guy who tried to sue his own girlfriend, right? She said you were emotionally unstable and refused help. Amber had started talking, not directly, but through wellness, storytime posts, vague enough to be anonymous, but specific enough that anyone who knew me would connect the dots. She posted things like, when you try to help someone with depression, but they're too attached to victimhood to accept love. Pharma doesn't heal. Inner work does. Sometimes they'll call you controlling when all you did was care more than anyone else ever has. People were defending her in comments. I've been there. Sis, the ones you try hardest to save always lash out. You were just trying to break generational trauma. It's not your fault he wasn't ready. I didn't even know these people, but they knew me now. Or at least her version of me. I made my profile private. Blocked her. Blocked 10 of her mutuals. But the damage was spreading. Then something unexpected happened. Someone sent me a voice note. A woman named Leah. She said she knew Amber from a past wellness retreat. That they had kept in touch, until Leah confronted her about some sketchy healing advice. I know this might sound crazy, but Amber did the same thing to someone I used to date. Said he was broken. Tried to fix him with weird detoxes and shadow work. When he pushed back, she told his family he was mentally unstable. Cut him off from everyone. She sent screenshots, voice notes. Her story echoed mine, almost word for word. I thanked her. Then I asked the question that had been gnawing at me for weeks. Do you think she actually believes she's helping? Or is this all control? Leah didn't even hesitate. I think Amber needs to be needed. It's not about healing. It's about being the savior. If you don't let her save you, she'll destroy you instead. That line haunted me. If you don't let her save you, she'll destroy you instead. I called my therapist that night. Told her everything. She said I needed to write it all down. Not just for the record, but for myself. To reclaim the story. So I did. And as I was writing, I realized I'd left one question unanswered. Why did Amber pick me? And then I remembered something. A single line, buried in one of her old journal entries that she once let me read early in the relationship, when she said she wanted to let me in. I'm drawn to the broken ones. I think it's my mission. I reread that line in my head so many times it started to lose meaning. I'm drawn to the broken ones. I think it's my mission. At the time, it had felt poetic, vulnerable, like she was admitting to some past wound that made her want to heal others. I thought it meant she understood me, that we shared something. Now it sounded like a warning I was too damaged to hear. After his message, I decided to dig deeper. Amber had blocked me everywhere, but I remembered she used to write for a wellness blog back in college. Something about natural alignment and gut-based intuition. I googled the name. The site was defunct, but thanks to the Wayback Machine, I found archived pages. What I found made my blood run cold. She had a post titled, "Fixing from the Outside In, When You Fall for the Wounded." It was dated 4 years ago. She wrote, "Some people find strength in being healers. Others find control. I've been both." And then, later, the trick is not to wait for them to ask for help. The broken rarely do. You show them they're broken, then offer the fix. They'll cling to you like air. I slammed the laptop shut. That's when it stopped being a bad relationship. That's when it became a calculated pattern. I tried not to spiral. I kept going to therapy. I showed my therapist the blog post, the voice messages from Leah, the Instagram stories. She looked at me quietly for a long time, then said, "You realize this isn't about your depression anymore, right?" I nodded. "This is about psychological abuse. This is about someone who used your illness to build control. It's not just unethical, it's dangerous." I knew she was right, but something inside me still whispered, "You let her in. You gave her the words. You left the journal out." That's what Amber did best. She made you doubt yourself even when she wasn't there. Then came the final blow. I got an email from HR. "Hi Sean. We've received an anonymous report expressing concern over your mental fitness to continue in your current role." I couldn't breathe. The message was professional, polite. They weren't firing me, but they wanted to schedule a wellness check, a meeting with an internal psychologist, a review of my recent behavior. I sat frozen for 20 minutes. Then I replied, "Was the concern tied to any specific incident or person?" They answered quickly, "We can't disclose the source, but the message referenced concerns about non-compliance with medical treatment and increasing instability." I knew exactly who it was. Amber. I didn't wait. I called Leah, asked if Amber had done anything like this before. She paused, then said, she reported her ex to his boss once, said he was spiritually unsafe. They didn't believe her, but it got messy. I told my therapist. She said I needed to escalate legally, so I did. I contacted a lawyer, showed her the screenshots, the audio, the invoice from the life coach, the Instagram stories, the anonymous tip to my job, the journal pages shown to my parents, the pill tampering. Her face got stiffer with each page. This isn't just a breakup story, she said. This is coercive control. It could fall under harassment or even medical interference depending on your state. She asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, not yet. Instead, we sent a cease and desist letter. No threats. Just legal language, clear and firm. If she contacted me again, or anyone in my professional or personal life, she'd be facing action. Amber didn't reply, but 2 days later, she posted this on her Instagram story. Some people pretend to heal while refusing to evolve. That's okay. Your purpose still matters. With a picture of a burning journal, I screenshotted it, sent it to my lawyer. She said, keep documenting, don't engage. Then one morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I ignored it. Voicemail came through. Amber's voice. I just wanted to say, I really did love you, but I couldn't let you keep lying to yourself. Maybe one day you'll thank me. You were lost, Sean. I helped you find your pain. Click. No apology, no remorse, just more justification. I sent the voicemail to my lawyer, and then I realized something chilling. Amber wasn't afraid of being caught. She was proud of what she'd done. In her mind, she hadn't violated me. She'd saved me. She was the heroine of her own twisted movie, and I was just the project that turned on her. That scared me more than anything, because how do you defend yourself against someone who thinks your pain is their calling? After the voicemail, I stopped waiting for closure. Amber didn't want peace. She wanted an ending where she still had the last word, even if that word came wrapped in soft-spoken spiritual bullshit. That's how she weaponized her brand of healing. Everything she did sounded calm, enlightened, gentle until you realized it was violence dressed in wellness. And by now, I was done pretending this was anything less than calculated abuse. I finally told HR the full story. I didn't go into every detail, but I explained the harassment, the breach of my medical privacy, and the anonymous report tied to my personal situation. I offered documentation. They reviewed everything. The psychologist cleared me in 30 minutes and apologized for the internal misunderstanding. But even after being vindicated, I felt shaken. Amber had managed to make me question my sanity, my relationships, even my livelihood, all under the guise of love. One night, I got a DM from a guy named Josh. It started simple. Hey, you don't know me, but I think we dated the same person. He attached a photo. Amber. Shorter hair. Same eyes. Same expression I now knew too well. The one that looked like kindness but always came with an angle. Josh and I talked for nearly 2 hours. His story was horrifying. Amber had dated him 3 years ago. She met him at a mental health support group. He was recovering from a suicide attempt. At first, she was supportive, just like with me. She cooked for him, organized his pills, made him wellness smoothies. But gradually, she started telling him the meds were holding him back. She pushed alternative therapies, reframed his trauma as karmic debt, told him his therapist was draining his spirit. He started isolating, stopped taking meds, stopped seeing friends. He had another breakdown 6 months in. When he tried to leave her, she told his brother he was using drugs again, a lie, and got him committed for 3 days under a 5,150 psychiatric hold. She said she did it to save him. He said something to me I'll never forget. She doesn't heal. She hunts. I told him I believed him, that I had proof, that I was working with a lawyer and a therapist. He said he was trying to move on, but knowing he wasn't alone helped more than he could say. I asked if he'd consider submitting a statement. He said yes. We built a timeline. May, Josh, Ulzex, possibly others. Same patterns. Finds someone emotionally vulnerable, becomes the only source of truth, undermines medication or therapy, isolates the person from family or friends, introduces healing practices that center her as the guide, then uses personal information as leverage or punishment when they resist. It was spiritual coercion disguised as love. And now that it was mapped out, I could finally see it clearly. I sat with my therapist and said, I still feel like I gave her too much. She looked at me for a long time before responding. No, Sean, you gave her trust. What she did with it is her failure, not yours. 1 week later, Amber posted a video, just her, in soft lighting, talking to the camera, voice calm, eyes glassy. She didn't name me, but it was obvious. She said she was healing from a relationship where she tried too hard to help someone who wasn't ready. She talked about being silenced by toxic masculinity. She mentioned ongoing legal intimidation. Then she cried. The comments exploded. Stay strong, queen. He couldn't handle a woman who wanted him whole. You did your best. That's all anyone can do. It made me sick. And yet a part of me still wanted to scream into that comment section. No, you didn't try to help me. You tried to erase me and rebuild something you could control. But I didn't, because it wouldn't have mattered. She wasn't talking to me. She was curating her audience. But karma, sometimes, doesn't come loud. 2 weeks after that video, Leah messaged me. She's under investigation. Apparently, the life coach she paid to treat me, not just unlicensed, she's under formal complaint from multiple former clients. Amber's name came up in 3 separate statements. The common thread: medical interference without consent. And because Amber paid for someone else's service on their behalf, without their approval, she might be tied to it as a co-conspirator under ethical review. She wasn't just messing with me anymore. She'd messed with the wrong people. My lawyer thinks I have a strong case if I want to pursue civil damages, emotional distress, reputational harm, potential income impact. But I'm still deciding, because the real battle wasn't legal. It was internal. She took so much from me: trust, confidence, calm. But she didn't take my story. She thought she could narrate it better than I could. And for a while, she did. But I'm reclaiming it. It's been 4 months since I last heard Amber's voice. No messages, no stories directed at me, no more anonymous tips at work. No updates from mutuals. Nothing. At first, that silence felt like a trick. Like the calm before she tried something else. One more post. One more backhanded, healing, quote. One more violation. But eventually, it started to feel like space. Space to breathe, to recover, to reclaim everything she blurred. I moved out of the apartment we once shared. Not because she had the right to take that space from me, but because every corner of it echoed with her voice. Not the yelling kind, but the insidious kind. The "I'm just trying to help" kind. The "you'll thank me later" kind. The "you're broken and I'm your answer" kind. I didn't want those walls anymore. Now I live in a smaller place, closer to the river, with no porch crystals or imported incense, or affirmation sticky notes on the fridge. Just peace. Books. A lock on my therapy journal. A new therapist, too. One who specializes in coercive relationships and identity repair. Turns out that's a real thing, because after someone spends a year convincing you that you can't trust your own thoughts, you need help remembering who you were before them. My parents and I are slowly repairing things. We've had hard conversations. They apologized, not just for believing her, but for assuming they knew who I was better than I did. They understand now that therapy isn't betrayal. That venting on paper doesn't mean I hate them. That healing is messy, and private, and mine. Sometimes they still try to check in too often, but now I can tell them, kindly, when I need space. And they listen. That didn't used to happen. Josh and I talk now and then, not often, just enough to remind ourselves that we weren't crazy, that what we went through was real, that other people have been through it too. Leah introduced me to a support group, online, anonymous, safe, people who've survived manipulative relationships disguised as empowerment. It's eerie how similar our stories are. Different names. Same red flags. It always starts with concern, ends with control. Amber never responded to the cease and desist. Never responded to the article Erin published later, the follow-up featuring multiple survivors, who came forward after reading her first piece. Amber's name was never revealed publicly, but the pattern was. And if you knew the details, you knew it was her. One of the other survivors, a woman named Casey, said something during a group session that hit me like a gut punch. She didn't fall in love with me. She fell in love with my brokenness. And when I started healing in ways she couldn't control, she panicked. That was it. Amber wasn't afraid of my pain. She was afraid of what would happen if I healed without her. People ask sometimes, why didn't I go public? Why didn't I sue? Expose her name? Burn it all down? The truth is, I don't want Amber to define any more of my life than she already has. Yes, I could post screenshots, compile timelines, tell the internet everything, but she already wrote enough of my story. Now, I'm writing my own. Some days are still hard. I have triggers. The smell of peppermint reminds me of her. So does the phrase, "You should be grateful." It used to make me pause. Now it makes me angry. But mostly, I'm okay. I take my meds. I journal, locked, password protected, sometimes out loud into my phone. And I keep one thing on my desk, a sticky note. Not hers, mine. It says, healing isn't something anyone does to you. It's something you reclaim. I don't know if she ever really loved me. I don't know if she even knows what love is. But I do know this. She thought she could break me in the name of healing. Instead, she showed me what I'll never accept again. I'm not sure I'll ever trust that deeply again. Not in the same way. But for the first time in years, I trust myself. And after everything I've lost, that feels like everything. I just don't understand how someone can read your pain like a book and still decide to use it as a weapon. Follow me for more stories.